The life Emily and I built together seemed like the very definition of success. We had everything others might envy: a beautiful home on a quiet street, two incredible children who were our greatest joy, and a picture-perfect image as a couple. Our smiles and family photos painted the illusion of happiness. To the outside world, we were the ideal couple. At least, that's what I believed. Emily was my high school sweetheart. We grew up in the same town, attended college together, and got married soon after. Everyone admired our bond, often saying we were meant to be. We had our fair share of struggles, but I never once doubted that our love would withstand any challenge. I was content, or at least I convinced myself I was. I worked long hours at the office, dedicated to building a secure future for our family. Emily always reassured me she understood. She had her own part-time job as a teacher, and we both agreed that sacrifices had to be made so our children would never have to struggle. That became our motto: work hard now for a better tomorrow. But over time, something changed. At first, it was subtle. She became more distant, less affectionate. The long conversations we once had at night, the ones that made us feel connected, gradually disappeared. I heard whispers, quiet suspicions that I brushed aside, blaming stress or exhaustion. But as the months passed, her behavior became impossible to ignore. At first, I told myself she was just overwhelmed with work. But then came the little things: the way she guarded her phone, the way she took it with her everywhere, always keeping it locked. A nagging feeling settled in my chest, but I dismissed it as paranoia. That is, until the night I came home earlier than expected. Her phone lit up on the counter, and a message appeared on the screen. "I can't wait to see you tonight, baby. I miss you so much." My stomach dropped. My mind raced. Who was this? What did this mean? No, this had to be a misunderstanding. Emily wouldn't betray me. We had built a life together. But the words on the screen told a truth I wasn't ready to face. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I needed proof. Over the next few days, I watched her more closely, and as much as it shattered me, I began searching for answers. I went through her messages and found more than I ever wanted to see: flirtatious conversations, hidden meetings, late-night rendezvous. But one message destroyed me completely. "I don't love him anymore. He's boring. You're the one I want. Let's make this permanent." I should have confronted her right then and there, but I couldn't. The pain was suffocating. I felt like a fool, like my entire world had been a lie. But I had to hold myself together. For my children, for the life I thought we had. That night, Emily came home late again, acting as if nothing had changed. For a fleeting moment, I tried to convince myself this was just a phase, an emotional lapse, something we could work through. But deep down, I knew better. The truth was staring me in the face, and no amount of denial could erase it. Desperate for answers, I hired a private investigator. If she was willing to destroy everything we had, I needed to know just how deep the betrayal ran. The results shattered me even further. Emily had been seeing someone for nearly a year. His name was Ryan Garrett, a wealthy real estate agent, well known for his charm and reckless confidence. He was everything I wasn't: carefree, bold, and dangerously persuasive. But it wasn't just an affair. Emily had already made plans to leave me for him. They were mapping out a new life together, one that didn't include me. The night I finally confronted her is one I'll never forget. The words spilled from me, raw and filled with pain. I laid out the evidence, the messages, the photos, every single betrayal. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She just sat there, expressionless, as if none of it mattered. And then she spoke. "Alex, I don't love you anymore. This isn't about you, it's about me." Her words cut deeper than any betrayal ever could. I want more. I want him. Her eyes held no remorse, no hesitation, just a cruel certainty that cut deeper than any blade. In that moment, I understood she was already gone. The betrayal was unbearable, but also shattered the illusion I had clung to for so long. The woman I had built a life with, the mother of my children, had discarded me without a second thought, for a man who cared far less for her than she foolishly believed. As I sat there, crushed beneath the weight of her indifference, my thoughts spiraled into something darker. I had to protect my children. I had to break free from this marriage before it consumed me entirely. But I had no idea just how far Emily and Ryan had already gone in their efforts to destroy me. The days that followed were a blur, a whirlwind of legal meetings, custody battles, and a desperate fight to keep my family from falling apart. Emily was no longer the woman I once adored. She had become a stranger, and Ryan was the one pulling the strings. But I had no idea what nightmare was waiting for me. One evening, after an exhausting day of legal consultations, my phone rang. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar. "Mr. Carter, we need you to come down to station. There's been an incident." My stomach clenched. My mind raced. Within minutes, I was rushing to the police station, heart pounding in my chest. But nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to hear. Ryan's wife, Olivia, was dead, murdered, and I was their prime suspect. It didn't make sense. I had nothing to do with her death. Yet, the evidence against me was overwhelming. A fabricated GPS report placed me near Olivia's home the night she was killed. My fingerprints were allegedly found on the murder weapon. And worst of all, an anonymous tip claimed I had been threatening her for months. Every piece of evidence was a carefully crafted lie. Emily and Ryan had set me up. They weren't just trying to ruin me. They wanted me gone for good. The courtroom became my battlefield, but the odds were stacked against me. Every day, I sat in that cold, sterile room while the prosecution painted me as a monster. My lawyer, Dave, fought with everything he had, but it was clear we were up against something far more powerful. Ryan Garrett had influence, wealth, and connections. He was using every resource at his disposal to ensure I never walked free again. The trial was relentless. And then, just when I thought things couldn't possibly get worse, Ryan himself appeared in court. Smug, confident, untouchable, he walked toward me, his voice dripping with mockery. "Well, look at you. Cooked." He smirked. "You're going away for 20 years for killing my wife. Meanwhile, I'll be enjoying yours. Your kids? They'll call me Dad. How does that feel, loser?" Rage burned through me like wildfire. My fists clenched, every muscle in my body screaming for me to act. I wanted to hit him, to break him the way he had broken my life. But I knew better. Losing control would only give him exactly what he wanted. So I stayed silent, watched him, memorized his arrogance. He thought he had won. But what Ryan Garrett didn't understand was that you can't manipulate a man who has nothing left to lose. The days after my arrest were the darkest of my life. The prison walls didn't scare me. I had already been dragged through hell. What haunted me was the uncertainty. My children were now in Emily's hands. What kind of future would they have if I was locked away, powerless to protect them? But if Ryan and Emily thought I was the kind of man to accept defeat, they were gravely mistaken. Sitting in that cold, gray cell, a quiet determination settled in. I wasn't just going to clear my name. I was going to make sure they paid for everything they had done, every betrayal, every lie, every calculated move to destroy me. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I wasn't just fighting for my freedom. I was fighting for vengeance. Ryan had torn my life apart, and I refused to let him walk away unscathed. If I wanted to take him down, I couldn't act on impulse. This wasn't a battle of strength or blind rage. It had to be a game of strategy, a war won through patience and precision. I needed to let my enemies think they were in control until they made the fatal mistake that would destroy them. The first step was getting my lawyer, Dave, to truly understand what we were up against. He was skilled, but I could tell he hadn't grasped the full scope of Ryan's influence. This wasn't just a legal fight. It was a war against a man with deep-rooted power. We needed leverage, and I knew exactly where to start. Late one night, I made a call to an old contact, someone who had helped me on sensitive matters in the past. "John," I murmured into the phone, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need a favor. Dig into Ryan Garrett. I want everything, his past, his secrets, his weaknesses. The dirtier, the better." There was a pause on the other end. "You know who you're dealing with, right?" John asked cautiously. "Ryan's got serious connections. If this goes wrong, it could blow up in your face." "I know," I said, my grip tightening around the phone. "But I don't have a choice." After a moment's hesitation, John agreed. And just like that, my silent war began. As the trial dragged on, it became clear the system wasn't built to find the truth. It was built to bury people like me. Every piece of evidence had been carefully planted. Every lie perfectly crafted. And Emily, she played her part flawlessly. She stood beside Ryan in court, her expression void of guilt, her gaze as cold and detached as a stranger's. The woman I had once loved was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. But I wasn't done fighting. Then, 2 weeks before the trial's final stages, Dave called me into his office. The urgency in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. "You're not going to believe this," he said, his eyes gleaming with something I hadn't seen before, hope. He slid a thick stack of documents across the desk. My pulse quickened. "What is it?" John came through. A slow, satisfied grin spread across Dave's face. He found something, and it's big. I flipped through the pages, my breath catching as I scanned the information. Ryan Garrett wasn't just some cocky real estate mogul. His father had been deeply entrenched in organized crime, and Ryan had been using those connections for years, bribing officials, manipulating real estate deals, and laundering money through shell companies. But the real bombshell? Olivia, Ryan's wife, had known everything. She was blackmailing him. Dave continued, watching the realization dawn on my face. She had proof of his crimes. If this gets out, Ryan isn't just losing his freedom. He's losing everything. My mind raced. This changed everything. If Olivia had been threatening to expose him, then the person with the most motive to kill her wasn't me. It was Ryan. "We can use this," I said, the weight of hopelessness lifting for the first time. "If we bring this to light, he won't just go down for framing me. He'll go down for murder." We moved quickly. While John dug deeper into Ryan's criminal ties, I made sure our case was airtight. I knew that once the truth was revealed, there would be no turning back. The trial became a war zone. Every second in that courtroom felt like a fight for survival. The prosecution relied heavily on fabricated evidence. The murder weapon, my compromised alibi, the so-called anonymous tip that perfectly framed me. But no matter how convincing it seemed, I knew the truth. I wasn't the killer. Then came the moment that changed everything. "Your Honor," Dave said, rising to his feet with confidence. "New evidence has come to light. Evidence that not only proves my client's innocence, but exposes a true murderer." He stepped forward, handing the judge a thick file. The tension in the room was suffocating. The jury leaned in, hanging on his every word. Silence fell over the courtroom. Then Ryan shot to his feet, his carefully crafted composure beginning to crack. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You're grasping at straws. None of this has anything to do with the case." Dave didn't flinch. "Actually, Mr. Garrett, what we have here is irrefutable proof that you and your father have been involved in illegal business dealings for years." The walls were closing in on him now. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw it. Fear in Ryan's eyes. And I knew he was about to lose everything. For years, Ryan's money laundering operation thrived in the shadows until his own wife, Olivia, uncovered the truth. She had the evidence to expose him, and she wasn't afraid to use it. That knowledge made her dangerous. And that was why she had to die. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Gasps rippled through the audience as the revelation settled in. Emily stood frozen, her complexion draining of color. She had been entangled in Ryan's schemes. But now, the same web that had ensnared me was closing in on her. Ryan's expression contorted with fury. "This is nonsense. You have nothing to prove that." Dave's lips curled into a knowing smirk. "Oh, we have plenty." He stepped forward, placing a thick file on the judge's desk. "We have Olivia's written testimony. We have financial records that trace the illegal transactions back to you. And we have eyewitnesses willing to come forward. Your empire, Mr. Garrett, is finished." I turned my gaze to Emily, hoping, maybe foolishly, that she would at least look at me. But she didn't. She couldn't. This betrayal had cut far deeper than just an affair. She had willingly immersed herself in Ryan's crimes, and now there was no escape. The person I once loved no longer existed. Only a hollow shell remained, consumed by lies and greed. The judge instructed the jury to deliberate. The weight of the moment pressed down on me like a vice. I had fought for months to prove my innocence. But would the truth finally be enough? Or would I lose everything despite it? Each passing second felt unbearable. Every breath, heavy. The entire room held its breath. Finally, the jury returned. The verdict was read. We, the jury, find the defendant, Ryan Garrett, guilty of murder, fraud, and money laundering. A collective gasp echoed through the courtroom. Ryan's face twisted in disbelief. His reign of power had crumbled. The man who had thought himself untouchable was now shackled and led away in disgrace. His empire reduced to nothing more than a cautionary tale. But the true moment of reckoning came when the judge turned to Emily. "As for you, Mrs. Carter," he announced firmly, "you are hereby charged with conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to fraud, and aiding in criminal activity. Your involvement in these crimes cannot be ignored." Tears streamed down Emily's face as the reality of her fate hit her like a tidal wave. The deception she had helped weave had finally unraveled, exposing not just her guilt in the court of law, but in the eyes of the world. The woman who once stood by my side as my wife, the mother of my children, was now nothing more than a convicted criminal. And as they took her away in handcuffs, I felt something unexpected. Not joy, not even anger, just a quiet, bittersweet satisfaction. I had lost her long ago, but now I had finally regained something far more important, my freedom and justice. The months after the trial were both liberating and deeply painful. Winning in court didn't erase the scars left behind. The damage had been done. I spent countless nights staring at the ceiling, sifting through the wreckage of everything I had lost, my marriage, my family as I had once known it, my own sense of self. Emily was sentenced to a long prison term, but the court granted me full custody of our children. They would never have to call Ryan Dad, but they would still have to live with the aftermath of their mother's choices. I vowed to be the father they deserved, to give them a future that wasn't defined by betrayal and lies. Through it all, I learned something powerful. Betrayal comes at a cost, one far greater than most ever realize. Trust is fragile, easily shattered. But revenge, when delivered with patience and precision, is the most devastating justice of all. Still, in the end, this wasn't just about vengeance. It was about reclaiming my life, my children's future, my own peace of mind. The final judgment wasn't just about sending Ryan and Emily to prison. It was about taking back the pieces of myself I had lost along the way.